House of Drear, Chapter 18, Part 3. What the Darrows saw was a glowing giant of a thing, with wings as translucent as glimmering silk. The great wings brushed the air as lightly as feathers. The thing itself seemed to rise up and down, making only a muffled, soft sound. There was a moan as one Darrow sank down before the winged creature atop the cave. Another one of them was yelling in a kind of strangled, husky scream. The third and last began to jump up and down, first on one foot and then on the other. The sight of the glowing bay with glimmering wings was indeed terrifying. Thomas, who was now supposed to come forward with Mr. Small and Mayhew, thus trapping the Darrows between ghosts and devils, was sagging down himself. He had not been prepared for the way Pluto looked, nor for the flashlight suddenly full on him, and no one had told him Pluto would say anything. Why had Pluto said what he said? All at once, Thomas was overcome with the night and with all the fear of Pluto that was buried deep inside him. He could not see Pesty on the bay's back. The reason he couldn't was that she was lying nearly flat, but Thomas didn't think of that. He simply saw that glowing devil of a horse, and he began to sink down. Mayhew grabbed hold of Thomas and carried him forward. "Come to," he whispered. "We have got them. Stand up." Thomas stood, but barely. He and Mayhew and Mr. Small now spread themselves in a half-circle behind the Darrows. Just then the Darrow who had fallen to his knees was lifted up by another Darrow and dragged away from the specter of Pluto and the winged demon, only to be dropped brutally at the sight of the three apparitions at the edge of the clearing. They shimmered so brightly that all three Darrows fell down. All the Darrow men were yelling now, and Mayhew, as old Mr. Drear, was laughing in a most horrifying, crazed sound, screeching and groaning as he inched toward them. The laugh tore through what little courage Thomas had left, and he folded up again. Mr. Small hissed at Thomas, rattling his chains and moaning so that Thomas would at least pump his arms, causing some of his own chains to clank. The effect of Thomas's own fear was perhaps the most convincing to the Darrows, for it seemed to them that he was a slave ghost still driven by invisible tormentors. "Let me out of here," one Darrow screamed. "Mr. Pluto, Lordy, call him off, call him off. Please let me go. I won't come back. Oh, please." Mr. Pluto commenced to laugh. It was a deep, hateful sort of laugh, full of malice and memory of malice. He laughed and laughed. With his laugh and Mayhew still screeching as dies Drear, the whole hill rocked with ear-splitting noise. "Get them, my demons, get them!" cried Mr. Pluto. Mr. Small raised his chains. So did Thomas. Mayhew folded his flowing arms around the closest Darrow. Men were scrambling all over the clearing. Thomas got caught in his own chains and nearly broke his ankle. Someone pulled him to his feet. He found himself face to face with a Darrow, and the Darrow was about ready to foam at the mouth. Suddenly, all the Darrows broke away and were running free. Mayhew began to laugh in his own voice. He slapped his hip and threw back his head and bellowed. One Darrow dropped dead in his tracks just at the edge of the clearing where Thomas had been hiding. Mr. Pluto began to laugh too, like a man who had successfully played a joke on someone. His was now a pleasant, healthy sort of laugh. He put his arm around Mayhew, folding him tenderly inside his throat. The Darrow stared at the two of them for the longest moment, then walked away. When the Darrows had gone for sure, Mr. Small said, "You laughed too soon. The last of them knew we were putting on for them. They would have figured it out, all of them. They would have figured it out, all of them, in another minute anyhow," Mayhew said. "The point is that for about 15 seconds we scared the living daylights out of them, and to make it worse, we laughed at them to their face because they allowed themselves to be fooled." "You have to know Darrows," said old Pluto to Mr. Small. "It's bad enough that anybody would dare trick them, but to get away with that and then to laugh at them right in front of them, why, they'll never live it down." "And they'll be about ready to pray we won't spread it around how we made fools out of them," Mayhew said. I'm going to have Pesty tell them we let all the carboys watch." Mr. Small had to smile. "You are surely something," he said. Then Mayhew and Pluto laughed and laughed. Gently Mr. Small led Thomas into the cave. The boy was trembling all over. Mr. Small tried not to let Thomas know he noticed. Thomas was so ashamed. He would never be an actor. Never in a million years.